Johnny boy. Ha. I see Anita let you have your balls back. Well, for a little bit at least. Now, I haven't watched this video at all, so I'm doing this totally off the cuff. And I will get my the rest of my video about the Huffington Post article on Gamergate up probably tomorrow. But I thought I'd just do a quick little video about this, so let's watch it.
For many men, it can be hard to know exactly what role we can or should play in working towards an end to sexism.
Okay, it's very simple. Don't be sexist. Like, I don't know how to make it any more clear than that.
How can men help, and how much or how little should we be helping? In this video, we will explore answers to those questions and share a few suggestions about how men can respectfully approach feminism and, critically, explain why it's beneficial for men to be involved. First things first, because there's so much misinformation about feminism floating around out there in the cultural ether, it's useful to quickly define what that term actually means.
Okay, so I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing you're going to throw the dictionary definition at me, which is, in a nutshell, gender equality. Okay, fine, I'm on board with that. Here's the problem. The actions of modern feminists do not reflect that at all. In fact, they reflect the exact opposite, which is, well, I wouldn't say the opposite, but they reflect more of a female supremacist movement than a gender equality movement. But let's watch it.
Feminism is a socio-political movement with the central goal of ending sexism and dismantling gender-based oppression.
Called it.
So contrary to common misconceptions, feminism is not about man-hating or female supremacy.
Then you should tell a lot of modern feminists that, because they haven't gotten the message.
It's important to note that the feminist endeavor, as it's been defined by women like Bell Hooks, does not simply seek equal access for women within current systems of power, but instead seeks to transform those systems and the values associated with them. So where do men fit into all of this? Well, women have long been pointing out the ways in which men can benefit from feminism, and actively calling for men's participation in working towards ending sexism.
Oh God. Oh my God. This is a disaster already. We're only a minute 18 into this video, and it's a goddamn fucking disaster. Oh my God, my head hurts. My head fucking hurts here. Alright, so really you want men to aid in the pursuit of gender equality. Okay, you know what? I can get on board with that. But again, you have to tell a lot of these modern third and even fourth wave feminists that what they're arguing for is not gender equality. And I think you need to get this through your head too, obviously. And your master, Anita, also really needs to get this through her head as well.
As Bell Hooks writes in her landmark 1984 book, Feminist Theory from Margin to Center, like women, men have been socialized to passively accept sexist ideology, while they need not blame themselves for accepting.
I've never really received, at least not to the best of my recollection, I never have been socialized to be passively accepting towards sexist ideology. I wouldn't even say socialized is the proper word there. I would say more conditioned would have been a better word to use, but whatever.
Accepting sexism, they must assume responsibility for eliminating it. Men are not exploited or oppressed by sexism.
We must assume responsibility for eliminating it, of course.
Sexism, but there are ways in which they suffer as a result.
Men are not exploited or oppressed by sexism? Are you fucking insane, Bell Hooks? Oh my god! And this is the exact line of rhetoric that Anita Sarkeesian wants to push, which is complete bullshit. If anything, we need more of a men's rights movement than we need a feminist movement. Oh, fucking hell. I'm resistant to call myself an MRA, but that's just my own take. I prefer egalitarianism. Anyways, let's continue.
Result of it. That bears repeating. Men are not exploited or oppressed by sexism, but there are ways in which we suffer as a result of it. We are taught early on that boys don't cry, that to show sensitivity or emotional vulnerability is a sign of weakness. Men are discouraged from practicing nurturing, caregiving, compassion, and compromise for the same reasons. So there is an enormous amount of...
Yeah, but I'd say that's more about being an adult. I mean, like, I don't want to cry every time something tragic happens in the world. Otherwise, I'd be crying all the time. I mean, I want to be an adult about situations that would make me cry. I mean, like, I have cried, sure. I don't think you can name a man on the face of the earth that hasn't cried at least once. So, I mean, and you're saying that because men don't cry, it's a problem. Well, they do cry, first of all. And just because they don't want to be seen when they're in a very vulnerable position doesn't mean that there's some type of sexist attitude going on here. I mean, I hate being seen when I'm vulnerable like that. I despise it. But I wouldn't say that's the way I was raised at all. The exact opposite. Like, I got bullied a lot when I was a little kid. I got bullied a lot. To the point where I was even considering transferring to another school because it was so bad. And I would come home and cry. And this was even when I was like 12 and 13 years old. I would come home and cry in front of my mother almost every day. And she always consoled me and tried to make me feel better. But yeah, my mom was like the only person who I would allow myself to be vulnerable around. But that doesn't mean that there's some type of sexist ideology or sexist social mentality at work here.
Pressure placed on men to prove our manhood by acting tough, projecting strength, and repressing our emotions. This is compounded by the fact that men are often more admired for being aggressive, dominant, and violent than for being cooperative, vulnerable, and empathetic.
Where are you getting this shit? Where? What the fuck are you saying? Like, men are you saying that men are like looked down upon and for being cooperative? Holy fuck. Like, I went to college to become a computer programmer. And in that class, in that course, the way it was set up, we had to work together on several projects. We just had to. And you know what? I actually liked working together, working with other people, despite the fact that I am a huge introvert. I liked working with my other classmates because I could get to know them a little bit better and, you know, also kind of form a little bit more of a social bond there. Oh my god. Oh my god. My friend Dirty Hippie Panda said that she couldn't even get through this video because it was so aggravating and so stupid. And I totally see where she's coming from now. Fuck. Alright, let's continue.
Not only is all of this damaging behavior encouraged in individual men, but those same values are also reflected in our larger political and military institutions, often to disastrous effect. So while in the military, yeah, I can definitely understand why you would want your military to be tough ass motherfuckers. Because if you had a bunch of babies crying all the time, if China's
look at the United States and say, that would make a nice territory. The United States wouldn't stand too much of a chance against them, would they? I mean, sometimes you just need to be the hard-ass motherfucker.
Men as a group are afforded gender-based privileges at the expense of women.
Bullshit.
A byproduct of patriarchy is that it also causes real harm to men's well-being.
So patriarchy also harms men. A society, assuming we live in a patriarchy, which we don't, if anything, we live in a gynocentric society, you're saying that the patriarchy, a society which values and worships men, also hurts them. Do you not understand what a fucking idiot you sound like?
Okay, so if we're on board with ending sexism, what specifically can we do as men to be helpful? Here's our quick list of 5 tips for respectfully engaging with feminism as men.
Listen to women. I think that kind of goes without saying. Like, if there is a woman that's in your life, whether it be your mother, your sister, your wife, girlfriend, whatever, you should listen to them.
Listen to women. Now that might seem really obvious, but far too often men have a hard time just listening to what women have to say and respecting women's knowledge and experiences. Because of the way we're socialized to think of our voices as most important, men have a tendency to interrupt and interject ourselves into conversations and then to dominate those interactions. This
No, you're wrong.
behavior is so ingrained that men often don't even realize we're doing it, which is why it's critical to learn how to take a step back, to try not to interrupt, and instead actively listen and absorb what is being said before responding.
Yeah, so teach women that too. That would be awesome.
Now, of course, this does not mean you have to agree with everything every individual woman says. No one person's perspective can ever represent all of feminism or the experiences of all women. It simply means that we, as men, are not in a position to define feminism for women, and that we should actively pay attention to women's voices, because for so long, women's experiences, women's perspectives, and women's ideas have been dismissed, ignored, and silenced.
You're wrong. You're full of shit. Go watch some videos by Karen Strong and she will set you straight.
It's especially vital to listen to women of color, particularly Black and Indigenous women, because, as feminist scholars have long pointed out, sexism is compounded when it's combined with racism and other forms of oppression. Back in 1989, Kimberly Crenshaw...
So, okay. So if there is a black woman in my computer programming class, which I don't even know there is. I'm not in the course right now. I'm going back in January. So you're saying that every time she has a question, her question comes first before all the other white men in the class every single time? You know, that's also sexist and racist. Just so you know.
Shaw coined the term intersectionality as part of her theory to describe these layered experiences that leave some women more disenfranchised than others. It's important for us, as men, to acknowledge that when we talk about feminism, we follow the lead of women. Yet while feminist ideas do originate with women, that does not mean that it's the responsibility of every woman to teach all men about sexism. So we shouldn't go around interrogating or demanding answers from women. Instead, we should be proactive in doing the work ourselves by committing to continuous lifelong learning.
Well, I would agree with that to some extent, because, you know, we walk around with these things in our hand called smartphones, and they're connected to something else called the internet. And there's something on the internet called Google, which can help you access the near sum of human knowledge. So no matter where you are, as long as you have cell reception, you can access the near sum of human knowledge. And some people, even today, just don't do that. But I have this cousin named Alex, and I really like Alex is a cool guy, but he's dumber than a bag of rocks, and he never thinks to Google something when he's curious about something. He was asking me something about history. I think about World War II. I can't remember exactly what he was asking, but he had heard somewheres that the British had fired on French ships during the war. And he asked me, well, why did that happen? And just in case you don't know, long story short, this was right after France had fallen to the Nazis, and the British fired on those ships and sunk as many as they could to prevent them from falling into the hands of the Nazis. He had actually told me he was wondering this for a long time, but never thought to go on the internet and search for it. So, people, just learn what Google is. That's really all I have to say. Anyways, let's continue.
Lucky for us, over the past century, feminist scholars have written volumes on the topic. So here are some suggested readings about feminism and how patriarchy operates as a social system.
Fuck, this should be good.
Feminism is for Everybody by Bell Hooks is a great place to start, though definitely put The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love at the very top of your list. Sociologist Alan G. Johnson's book, The Gender Knot, Unraveling Our Patriarchal Legacy, is also essential reading, as well as This Bridge Called My Back, edited by Cherry Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa. For those interested in something written in a more...
I've never read any of these books, but I would definitely like to someday. I just don't have the time for it.
Academic language, check out Masculinities by R.W. Connell and her follow-up book, The Men and the Boys.
Okay, so I'm back. So moving on.
Men can be most helpful in regards to feminism is first within ourselves and then amongst other men. Patriarchy encourages men to buy into sexist thinking and at the very least remain complacent in sexism through our silence.
Please demonstrate how we live in the patriarchy.
So instead, step off the path of least resistance and dare to make yourself and other men uncomfortable about sexism. Let the other men around you...
Okay, so yeah, make your friends uncomfortable around you. That makes sense. I kind of see where he's coming from. Like, if you want to make changes in the world, sometimes you have to have difficult conversations with your friends. But I think he's going a little bit overboard here.
Know that their sexist behavior is not okay.
So define sexist behavior. Like, can you provide some examples here?
For example, when you stand up and say that a sexist joke is not funny, the men telling that joke can no longer be assured that they will go unchallenged the next time they tell it. In other words...
What? So... So if I tell you that the reason why women have smaller feet is so that they can stand closer to the stove, I might tell that joke to you, and you may not find that funny. But I can go and tell that to a bunch of other guys. And you know what? They would probably laugh. Heck, I could probably tell it to some women, and they would laugh. So just lighten up. Have a sense of humor. Not everything in life is 100% serious.
Those men can no longer count on other men to accept or go along with their sexism. Interrupting the sexist status quo is a simple yet powerful way that all men can make a difference. If you make a comment and a woman dismisses or disagrees with you, don't take it personally. She doesn't owe you anything.
Okay, yeah, what? Okay, so if you say a comment and it's dismissed by a woman, don't take it seriously. So the question I have for you is, do you suggest women apply that to men? Like, if a woman comes along and tells me something stupid, I'm going to say that's stupid, or that doesn't make any sense, or I'm going to dismiss it. It's not based on the fact that she is a woman. It's based on the fact that what she said was stupid.
And her disagreement does not necessarily mean that she's angry or frustrated with you as an individual. That being said, it's completely understandable for women to express anger about sexism. Sexism...
Oh my God! You're like, I don't know exactly where he's going from this, but it's seeming like he's refuting what he just said when he reverses the gender roles. Like, to me, like, it seems like he's going to say, oh, well, if a woman disagrees with you, that's sexism, or whatever. I don't know, let's find out.
Should make everyone angry. After all, most women have some first-hand experience with violence, or harassment, or mistreatment at the hands of men. Sometimes...
Oh, and men don't have any experience of violence, mistreatment at the hands of women? Fuck, I sound like an MRA.
Even men who claim to be allies. So don't get defensive if individual women don't want to engage with you. And remember that it's definitely not our job to police the ways that women may choose to speak about sexism or their experiences. Men's support for feminism should not be seen as some kind of favor to women. As we've discussed, dismantling the system of sexist beliefs benefits people of all genders. And moreover, men shouldn't expect a reward for deciding not to participate in a terrible system of oppression.
Fuck yes, give me that fucking cake.
Or, as many feminists have said before, you don't get a cookie for being a decent human being.
I want my fucking cookie!
It's really hard to break years of socialization overnight, so messing up is inevitable. I've certainly made my fair share of mistakes.
Sure.
The key is what you do next. We always have a choice in how we respond to our mistakes. So be humble, examine your own actions, acknowledge failings, and continue to learn how to be better and more supportive. Sexism...
I think that's something that everyone should apply to every facet of their lives. But almost no one does. Well, I shouldn't say that. I see a lot of people who don't.
Is not necessarily something always done consciously. It's something we're socialized to think is normal. And as such, it's something we often...
What? We are socialized to believe that sexism is normal. No. Example, please. Citation, please. Back up your fucking claim.
Participate in without even meaning to. This is why challenging ourselves and reflecting on our own actions is a vital step in the process. But remember to be compassionate and patient with yourself and keep working at it. This is by no means...
Preacher. This guy totally sounds like a preacher. You're never going to be the perfect Christian. But keep trying. Keep trying. Keep striving for that goal of being a perfect Christian, despite the fact that it's completely out of your reach.
An exhaustive list of advice, but it should give you a place to start. Now, if you're feeling a little uneasy at this point, that might actually be a good sign. As men, the process of honestly re-examining our own assumptions and questioning our participation in sexism will often feel uncomfortable. But remember that even though we as individuals didn't create the system of patriarchy, it does manifest itself in almost every aspect of our lives.
How? How? Give me some examples here.
Which means we do have a responsibility to challenge it. We must always recall our potential for positive impact in the world, and be involved in this work not out of personal guilt or shame, but because, as we've discussed in this video, the desired outcome is ending gender-based oppression and making the world a better place for people of all genders, including men.
All genders, including men. It's interesting that you felt the need to push that in there. And that's it. Oh, Anita Sarkeesian was the producer. Interesting. That was painful. That hurt. I mean, like, what do you say to this? Oh, fuck. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, Steve Talon.